What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer, and today I'm back with another video about career progression. Now, most of the time when I say that, I talk about how we think about our careers or the kinds of jobs we want. I seldom talk about the actual work we're doing every day. Not only because that's not really what this channel is about, but also because I think it's something that people talk about a ton on the internet. However, I want to talk about something I don't think people touch on. I think people talk about the work that they are assigned to do by their manager as if it is this very passive process. You're told what to do by your boss or supervisor or whoever else, and you go do it. We don't get to choose the work we do. That is true. However, people are much more passive in the acquisition of new work opportunities, new stuff to do, than they really should be. We have a lot more control and agency and autonomy over what we do, and most importantly, in the context of this channel, how what we do gets us where we're trying to go. We have much more agency and control over these things than we actually realize. We can really take some self-sovereignty and think about the work that we're assigned and how we can do it in a way that aligns with our own interests. And that's what I want to talk about as a subject of today's video. Like I said, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for other young engineers like myself. And if you're looking to get a few pieces of advice about how to kill it in your engineering career, not from somebody who did it 20 years ago, but from somebody who's doing it right now, then this is definitely the channel for you. Today, I'm going to talk about your work, why it sucks, and how we can fix it. I'm going to start off by attacking this idea of work being this kind of passive thing that we're just given by our managers. Yes, our managers are going to tell us what to do unless we're self-employed. I recognize that. But every piece of work that we're assigned with has some type of implicit or explicit return associated with it. And thinking about the kinds of ROI we're looking to get from the work we do can help us navigate what our managers hurl our way a little bit better than somebody who hasn't thought about it and just thinks that the work we're given is a largely passive process we have no control over. So a couple of examples of returns on investment, ROI, that we might actually get from work our manager gives us. One is skill. The work that you're being assigned by your manager, does it actually teach you something? Does it help you learn a skill that you can use to get the next opportunity? Another one might be just goodwill with someone. It could be your manager, it could be a teammate, it could be some members of another team or another company even. Is there some positive social capital associated with this work that even if it doesn't teach you something specifically that you want to learn in a technical way, you could catch that goodwill you have with other people later for something a little bit more aligned with your interest. Another one along these lines might be scope or authority. Maybe you just want to do a big project or lead a big team because they're big. You're trying to become a more senior member of the team. You're trying to work your way towards management positions, executive leadership positions. And this piece of work, even if it's not everything you ever dreamed of, can help you get there just by virtue of it being bigger than the last thing you did. Another one that's a little bit different from social capital but kind of related is relationships. Does this further a specific relationship you have with another person that's going to help you get where you're trying to go, or at least be a partner that you can work with towards the goals you're trying to achieve? And the last one is just less headache. Maybe it's unsexy work that's just automating some process or fixing some bug, but it really will improve your life and hopefully the lives of the other people that you work with, which could then materialize as all the other things I just talked about. So there's different returns associated with our work, and there's different costs associated with them. One might be time, like how long is it going to take? Another one is energy or interest. Is this something that you're super jazzed about and isn't going to take you a ton of time or energy? Or is this something exhausting and it's just going to be a drudge to get through for days and days, and you're going to be miserable and you're going to hate your job, you're not going to talk to anybody? That energy and interest has a cost associated with it. We can't do stuff we hate forever, as much as some people may try. There's some cost associated with that. And the last one I'll mention is political capital. In the same way that we can gain positive social capital with other people through this work, we can also kind of gain negative social capital. Maybe it's a project that nobody supports, or it's sticking your nose in somebody's business that they may think you don't belong there. Whatever it may be, think about potential negative reputational risk associated with work, not just positive upside. Because not everybody's going to like all the work you do all the time, I'm sorry to say. All of this is just to say we do have more agency over the work we do because we can think about the different things we want to get out of it, and then we can approach that work and approach how we think about that work with those things in mind from the very beginning. And the next 2 points we're going to discuss here are all about navigating the work we're assigned to maximize the ROI and minimize the cost that we could possibly get. So I know that first point I just made was a little bit abstract, but I really do believe we have more agency over the work we do than we realize. Not in what work we actually pick, because it is true. Your manager is going to get some list of things that have to get done from their manager, and they're going to delegate out as much as they can or need to. And then barring any sort of negotiation, sometimes you have some goodwill in your manager and you can directly negotiate to just not do work you don't want to do. But barring that situation, we are given work by managers. And so thinking about how to do the work in a way that maximizes what we want while also accomplishing the goal and doing what we're paid to do, that's what I want to talk about with the next couple of points. So the next one is that work is not a binary thing. It's not a binary worth it or not worth it endeavor. If you take any piece of work, especially of any significant technical complexity, there's a ton of ways you could do it that are worth your time, and there's a ton of ways you could do it that are bullshit. Engineers usually decide whether they should do something by just looking at it at face value, thinking about it for 5 minutes, and either writing it off or whole hog doing it exactly in the way they were specified. But think about the different levers you can pull in terms of your approach to actually make it more or less worth it for you. And these are going to kind of echo what we just talked about. The first one I'll mention is scope. Everybody knows about scope creep. You could do something that's the minimum viable, like exactly what they need to fix the problem or perform the service that they're looking for, and then move on. Or you could make it this massive monster that just takes months and months and months and full-time work from multiple people, and it's just gonna be a nightmare. And maybe you want something that big, like maybe you're trying to really take your career to the next level, and that's gonna require a huge labor of love. It might not. It might just be something small that you could kind of bang out really quickly. Scope is a huge lever that people don't manipulate, and this isn't even career advice, this is just engineering advice. Think about scope when you're doing work because it's really, really important. The next one is tools and techniques. So I talked about skills earlier, like something could teach you skills. It could also give you the opportunity to use certain tools or use certain techniques that you've been looking to use and put on your resume. So think about what those candidate solutions to the problem you're trying to solve actually are, and not just what's the best. Obviously, you want to always do good work, good quality work. You don't want to intentionally take a dive, but there are usually lots of viable solutions to a problem that will vary in terms of techniques and skills and tools applied. So think about which ones you want to apply, not just based on what you know now, but what you want to know tomorrow. As with all the social and political capital stuff I mentioned earlier, there's obviously collaborators. Thinking about who you want to work with is a really big deal. Not just for the advancement reasons we talked about earlier, but also for the quality of life reasons. Typically, we don't want to work with people that we freaking hate. So a project that might be pretty fun and teach us a lot and be an enjoyable experience and not cost us a ton of time and energy with the right people could turn into an absolute life-ruining catastrophe or career-ruining catastrophe anyway if we're paired with a bunch of people that we don't like to work with. So thinking about those collaborators, trying to be intentional about it, and then trying to intentionally seek those people out is a really big piece of advice. I always try to think about who I want to work with on something just as much as I think about the thing itself. And the last one I'll talk about is framing. So framing is a little bit more about the narrative of our work. How do we want to phrase and frame the work we've done? And there's no right answer to this question. Maybe we want to frame it like a bug fix. Maybe we want to frame it like a feature ad. Maybe we want to frame it like we were a core contributor. Maybe we want to phrase it like we led the team. Maybe we want to phrase it like this is something that is going to change the nature of the business forever and is going to drive value for years to come. Maybe we want to phrase it like this is something people should have done and I was the guy or girl who stepped up to do it. There are lots of different narratives you can wrap your work in, and as much as engineers don't like to admit that this really, really matters, it does. So good work framed the wrong way and presented the wrong way to the wrong people is not going to give you the same return as work that's actually articulated in a way that makes sense, gets you where you're trying to go, and communicates the real value for everybody involved. So people don't want to admit or accept that there's a ton of narratives, there's a ton of qualitative, even emotional things involved in engineering, but that's just the reality. At the end of the day, we are humans and we are working together and we tell each other stories. So thinking about that story is really, really important. So don't just ask whether to do the work at all. Any answer that simple is not going to actually tell us what we need to know. Think about what are the ways in which we can do this that are worth it. What are the ways that we can do this in which it's not? What are the different levers we can pull to kind of maximize the return and minimize the cost, and try to approach that ideal as much as humanly possible as you're embarking on your next work assignment. Speaking of your next work assignment, the last one I want to talk about is being greedy. Don't be greedy. And when I say greedy, I don't mean hoarding a bunch of work or hoarding a bunch of credit, although I would advise against doing that as well. What I mean by greedy as in search algorithms greedy. Thinking only about the next best decision. You don't want to be like that. You want to think multiple steps ahead. It's just like a chess game. So don't think about what's the ROI of this specific thing in isolation. Even once you've done all the work we just talked about to really think about multiple approaches and which are more worth it than others, all that kind of stuff. Even once you have that theoretical number, don't take it in isolation. Think about what comes after it. Are you gonna get some kind of brand associated with you, some kind of skills that are reproducible and they're gonna want you to reproduce, some team you're gonna get exposure to that you might wanna join. Think about what's gonna come after this next piece of work. Don't let it end once that thing's completed. A few examples of how work item N might affect work item N+1. One is credibility. Maybe just doing good work is the best way to get good work in the future. This is especially true when you're starting a new job. You just got to get your feet wet. You just got to show that you can do good work and you can contribute, and you do that enough times and then you'll start to get the opportunities that you're really looking for. That's super important. Another one is building some kind of tool or platform. Like maybe you build something that multiple people find valuable and multiple people return to over and over again. And you could either send it out as some code snippet that you think they're gonna find helpful, or some Claude skill or whatever else, or you could actually build an internal tool that people can use live on their own. And now you're not just an individual contributor, you're someone enhancing the productivity of everybody else you work with. You're like a triple benefit type of person. Building out a platform or a service within your company and really contributing to the process just as much as the product is a huge, often overlooked mode of extending your work and the returns of your work into the future. Another one might be compounding skills. So maybe there's something that's a little bit harder, a little bit more frustrating than you'd like it to be, but by taking a big bite out of that, you can go crush a few smaller things afterwards. Either from a technical perspective, like you just learn a bunch of stuff that you can then learn to improve other smaller things, or from that credibility perspective we just talked about. You kill it and then you get assigned a bunch of smaller tickets because they assume you can handle the smaller ones once you've handled the bigger one. And if you're going for those smaller ones, compounding those wins one after another, a great way to kind of get that ball rolling towards the beginning while we're still cold is to push a really big boulder down the hill. The last one I'll kind of talk about here is actually turning down work. Now I know we said we can't always turn down work, like sometimes we have to do it. Oftentimes figuring out something's a landmine takes thinking about what comes next, not thinking about the thing itself. If I do use this tool, what's gonna happen next? And I'm gonna get put on a bunch of infra projects using this tool that I don't actually want to do. Or if I get more expertise in this area I'm not actually interested in at all, then I'm going to get more and more work in this area and it's going to go downhill from there. So I know we can't always say no, and maybe it's worth a separate video of its own, like how to actually say no to work when necessary, but sometimes thinking ahead does involve turning down an opportunity that might seem decent or neutral in the moment, but can actually have detrimental effects in the long run. So these are just a few reasons that you really shouldn't be greedy and how you can use that non-greediness to actually unlock things in the future. So in conclusion, I know this is a bit of an abstract video today, but I just really want to talk about the return on investment of our work. We do have some autonomy, some agency here. We can approach our work and the things we're building and the things we're doing in a whole wide spectrum of ways. And some of them are going to be really, really worth it and help move the needle towards what we want, which moving the needle towards what we want is 80% of what this channel is about. So there are some ways you can do it in which that goal is best served. There are other ways that are kind of crappy and are just swirling the drain and are not going to get us where we're trying to go, and we should try to avoid those. But the point I'm trying to make with this video is that both of those approaches often exist within the scope of whatever our manager has given us. So it's not just up to them. Regardless of what they give us, we have a lot of variability in how we can approach it, and therefore the return we can get on it. So just hopefully this video helped you frame things a bit differently in your head the next time your boss says, hey, can we hop on a meeting? I have something I need to ask you to do. So yeah, like I said, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for other engineers like myself. And if you're trying to advance your career as a young person and learn from somebody, not who went through it 20 years ago, but is going through it right now like I am, this is definitely the channel for you. So thanks a lot for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.